Welcome to Basic Brewing Radio for Thursday, October 1st, 2009. I'm James Spencer. Here at Basic Brewing Radio, we're all about home brewing. With this week, Jeff Bearer from Craft Beer Radio steps in to take us to the announcement of the winners in the Sam Adams Long Shot competition. 3 home brewers will have their beers in a 6-pack and their faces on a bottle of Sam Adams beer. And we'll also hear from the winner of the GABF Pro-Am competition. If you're new to home brewing and would like to get into the hobby for the first time, check out our website, basicbrewing.com, where you can find archives of our audio and video podcasts and our DVDs to walk you through basic and more advanced brewing techniques. And you can follow me on Twitter, of course. My username is Basic Brewing, all one word. Also, you can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/basicbrewing.james. And we have a Basic Brewing Radio and Basic Brewing Video page on Facebook as well, which is now easier to find at facebook.com/basicbrewing. And fans of the show there will be getting out notices when shows are posted. Thanks again to everybody clicking on the Amazon.com associate link on our basicbrewing.com site. Whenever you think of Amazon, think of us and click on our associate link first. It won't cost you any extra. And you'll be helping us to bring you this show, and we appreciate your support greatly. We also have associate links for Brew Your Own Magazine and the American Homebrewers Association on our site, too, and we appreciate the partnerships with both of those organizations. Speaking of Brew Your Own Magazine, September 30th was the official deadline for entries for your data for the Brew Your Own Magazine Basic Brewing Radio Collaborative Experiment on yeast pitching rates. And I'm impressed with what I've seen. Brewers who took the time to conduct the experiment and record their data were very thorough, and that is greatly appreciated. And for those who might have forgotten to send in your data, I will leave the form up at basicbrewing.com/experiment for a few days more. That's basicbrewing.com/experiment. If you've forgotten or if you've gotten behind on your experiment, I will leave that up until we record our show comparing the beers. And thanks to everybody very, very much who participated in the experiment. I've posted a new episode of Basic Brewing Video. In this week's show, Steve Wilkes walks us through the results of his chili beer experiment. Steve compared 5 different chilies as they were added in the secondary of the same base beer that was split 5 ways. And boy, very tasty and very interesting, of course, to see how those 5 different chili peppers compared. I'm hurrying along because Jeff recorded a lot of great stuff, and we appreciate that. As you probably know, we didn't go to the Great American Beer Festival this year. We're hoping to be back next year. But Jeff Bearer from Craft Beer Radio did go, and he stepped in to help us get some coverage while he was there. And since we're all about home brewing, we were very interested in hearing who won the Sam Adams Long Shot competition and hearing from all the finalists. Well, Jeff Bearer, welcome back to Basic Brewing Radio.
Thanks for having me on, James.
You volunteered to capture some sound at the Long Shot competition, and I took you up on it. But before we get into that, this is the first time that you and Greg have been out there at the Great American Beer Festival together, right?
Yeah. I went 2 years ago as my only other time. Greg wasn't able to make it, and so this year we were able to go together and had a pretty good time. I felt it was my job to show Greg a good time and show him all the cool things.
So did you succeed?
I tried to. Greg doesn't have quite the stamina that I had. I was out a lot more, but he had his fill. He had all he could take. So,
we will be listening to Craft Beer Radio for all the highlights of your coverage. But what were the high points that you thought this year? Both those that you captured for the show and just in general.
So most of the content that we're putting up for the show is the recordings from the Beer and Food Pavilion. We were a little negligent in our duties capturing other footage. But we have a few things. We'll be doing a GABF wrap-up show on the feed on Craft Beer Radio, and that'll have everything else in it. Touring Fort Collins, or touring New Belgium Brewery with Eric Salazar and the guys from the brewery was outstanding. Eric is the guy that does all the wood blending in New Belgium, and he gave us a tour of the entire place, including drinking the two source beers that they use for blending, Oscar and Felix, straight from the foeders.
Wow.
And felt like a special man at that point in time.
Well, you are a special man. Did you get?
Hey, is that an insult?
I wasn't using air quotes when I said special.
Okay.
So. Did you get to go on the roof on the fermenters on the top?
We didn't go all the way up on the roof. I saw some video from one of my other buddies who was on a more special tour than mine, and he was standing up on top of the grain silo or whatever and looking around. So I didn't get to do that.
Well, I've got one up on you on that, and but yeah, they know how to treat members of the beer media well there at New Belgium, and
Absolutely.
They have good beers too, which doesn't hurt either. Now one of the reasons that we like to go to the Great American Beer Festival is for the announcement of the Long Shot 6-pack. And now give us some background on what the Long Shot is.
So it's a homebrew competition that is run by Sam Adams. Basically, you enter beers into the Long Shot, and there's regional qualifiers, and then all of the winners that it's consolidated down. And Jim and a couple of the beer media who help him taste and choose pick the winners. And actually, I happened to be out in Boston the day that they made the decision. I was hanging out with a couple of the guys, but they wouldn't spill any beans then. I tried.
any Boston baked beans. Crime and punishment here on Basic Brewing Radio. So there's a general population component, and then there is a component that is just employees of the Sam Adams Company. Everybody enters beers, and if you win the competition, you get your face on a bottle of beer in the 6-pack, and you get your beer produced by Sam Adams, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, so the employee competition is actually a fan vote, where the homebrew part of the competition is selected by Jim himself. So you could vote at various events around the country and at the Great American Beer Fest for the early sessions on which employee beer you like the best. My favorite didn't win.
What was your favorite?
They did this pale ale with orange zest and espresso. So it was this coffee orange pale ale, and I really liked it. And it was wild because you would think it'd be like really dark like coffee, but you couldn't even tell there was coffee in the thing.
Well, before we spill any more virtual beans about who won and who didn't, why don't we listen to the interviews that you did, and you were good enough to get interviews with all of the participants beforehand, and then we will hear Jim Cook actually do the announcement, and then you talk to 2 out of 3 of the winners afterwards. So here we go.
I'm here with Jeremy White from Sam Adams, and the beer he entered is the Lemon Pepper Saison. Guys, in these, you finalists are always these spicy, fruity things. Tell me a little bit about your beer.
It's just a light Belgian-style Saison ale. It's got some black pepper in it, some lemon, coriander, grains of paradise. Just a nice, easy-to-drink ale, and it's got a little bit of spice. It brings out the natural notes of the yeast. I think it's a great beer.
How long have you been with Sam Adams, and how many times have you entered in the employee competition?
I'm actually just coming up on my 1-year anniversary at Sam Adams, so this is my first year entering.
How long have you been homebrewing for?
I've been homebrewing for about 3 years now.
Could you tell me a little bit about your homebrewing system?
It's just I'm an extract brewer. I don't have space in my apartment in Boston to really go all grain, nowhere to do it. So I just have a normal brew kettle. The one fancy thing I really have is I have a plate chiller, so that helps just get the wort to the right temperature quickly and start fermentation on the right note.
All right. Well, thank you and good luck.
Thank you very much.
I'm here with Tim Kerrigan. He is one of the finalists for the employee competition. Tim, tell me a little bit about the beer that you are here with.
I brewed a 6 a.m. pale ale. This is a pale ale brewed with espresso and orange zest. Not your typical pale ale. I'm using 3 types of American hops: Cascade, Amarillo, and Centennial. So it's not your average spin on a pale ale. It came out quite nice.
First thing, you said espresso, and people at home might be thinking that this is a dark beer or a stout, but it's pale ale. And picking it up, it doesn't look like there's any kind of coffee in there. Tell me a little bit about that, like the proportions and how you did that.
For the coffee, I used just a regular espresso grounds. I used a cold steep and added to my secondary fermentation. It came out like very little color. I was expecting a little more, but I like how the pale ale doesn't show it at all. It kind of messes with your mind. You're expecting a dark color with the espresso, but you don't get it.
How long have you been with Sam Adams, and how many times have you entered the employee competition?
I've been with Sam Adams about 3 years. I've been home brewing for about the same amount of time. Lucky to be with Sam Adams. They've basically taught me everything about beer and everything I need to do about brewing.
Have you entered the employee competition before?
Yes, I have. This is my second year.
Where did you get the inspiration for doing a pale ale with orange zest and coffee?
There's a couple inspirations. I live in South Boston, which is really known for its Irish heritage. They have an amazing St. Patrick's Day parade, and being up early, getting ready for the parade, I thought it'd be great to have some type of beer in the morning. I drink orange juice and coffee in the morning. I thought that'd be good inspiration. Also, I learned countries that really like espresso, like Italy and France, they always serve it with a citrus. And when you have citrus, it's an excellent complement for the espresso. It dulls the bitterness. You get a little bit of the bitterness in this beer at the end, but it's an amazing complement. And when you go further, American hops are amazingly citrusy, very bright citrus. So when you combine orange zest, citrus from the hops, and the espresso, it somehow worked out. It was a big gamble. It was an experimental brew, but it turned out pretty decent.
Tell me a little bit about your home brewing system.
My home brewing system, unfortunately for this brew, I've been trying all grain in my system. I've had some issues with it, so this one I use dry extract, kind of just to submit for the competition. I had a lot of luck with dry extract. It was quick, easy, simple. I prefer all grain, but this is the one I'm going with.
All right, well, thank you very much.
I appreciate it.
And good luck.
Thanks, Jeff. Thank you.
Okay, I'm here with Andy Gavin. He's the last finalist for the employee long shot, and your beer is called 8-Stitch Steamer. Tell me a little bit about that beer.
It's a California common beer. It was brewed with mesquite honey added right before we racked it to balance out the hops in it, make it a nice, easy-drinking, sessionable beer. Brewed originally for a Memorial Day barbecue, so wanted everyone to enjoy it, have a nice beer that they could, enjoy with their burgers and their sausages.
You said mesquite honey?
Mesquite honey was added right before we racked it.
I'm not familiar with mesquite honey. Can you tell me a little bit about that and what it's used for?
Yep, mesquite honey, it's a honey with some mesquite smoke added in, so it has a little bit of smokiness to it. Primarily the sweetness is what you get out of it, but you have that smokiness as well to give a little something extra. Most California commons are pretty basic with the lager yeast. They have a nice hop character to it, and we wanted to do something a little bit different, add a little bit of sweetness to it, and get that smokiness character.
How long have you been at Sam Adams, and how many times have you entered in the homebrewing competition?
I've been at Sam Adams for about 14 months now. I'm in the brand development department, and this is the first time I've entered the contest.
Bunch of newbies here. Won the finals.
Yeah, it's great. All three of us it's our first time. We've all been at the company for about a year, so it's a great experience. It's 2 guys I know from the office as well, so it's been a lot of fun.
So how long have you been homebrewing?
Been homebrewing about 4 years now. I've made 9 or 10 beers. Just had twin girls about 10 months ago, so my homebrewing has really been limited recently, which was exciting that I got the chance to do this. My wife is a gift to me, let me brew. And we made 2 batches side by side. The way this got its name as 8-Stitch Steamer is I dropped one of the carboys on the stairs. Glass shatters, a slice of piece of the glass slit my wrist. I ended up getting 8 stitches. My wife came in when she saw all this blood. I said, "Oh my God, your wrist!" And I looked down and I saw my beer everywhere. And I'm like, "Oh my God, my beer!" I don't have time to brew much these days, and losing a batch of beer really, really hurt.
I've heard way too many horror stories about people dropping carboys and getting cut badly. I should take heed and get one of those brew haulers before I do it myself.
Well, it was funny. I brewed with my buddy TD, and he was carrying this batch, the 8-stitch steamer, down the stairs. I was carrying the other one. Luckily, he was carrying the right one, and he was using a carboy holder, and I was kind of making fun of him for using it. And I'm like, they don't work, just carry the carboy. And then I go and drop the carboy not using it. So
You went out and bought one, didn't you?
Yeah, I did.
All right, well, thank you very much and good luck.
Thank you very much.
I'm here with Ben Miller. He's a long shot finalist. Tell us a little bit about your beer.
My beer is an American barley wine, kind of an over-the-top beer and everything, hops, malt, alcohol. But the key to this beer is really to keep it drinkable. You want something that's in your face, but you don't want it to knock you down too much. Maybe after 3, but it's something that you want to be able to enjoy a pint or 2 of without getting overwhelmed. And so I think that's one of the hardest things about brewing a barley wine to me, is to keep all those things in check and balance, because it really is a big beer.
Is this a formula that you've used a lot, or is it something that's new? Have you entered it in other competitions and done well?
So this one was actually my first time ever brewing a barley wine. I've been wanting to do one for a long time. I was kind of turned off because the traditional wisdom is that a barley wine takes, a year minimum to make. Of course, an American barley wine needs to be nice and hoppy. Over a year, you're going to lose a lot of those hops. So this one that I entered was actually only about 3 months old when I entered it. I think one of the keys is to, with these high alcohol beers, ferment it correctly, keep the temperature down. That way you don't get a lot of those hot alcohol notes that take a lot of time to age out. So you can kind of cheat the process a little bit, get a beer that's drinkable with mellow alcohol and still have that fresh hop flavored aroma.
What kind of alcohol range are we looking at for this beer?
Depends on how you calculate it, but it's about 12%, I'd say.
And it's American barley wine, so there's lots of hops. What is the IBUs, if you calculate that?
This calculated at about 100 IBUs. Not too over the top. I have a double IPA that calculates at 250. And they say the theoretical max that you can taste is 100 from hops. You can taste a lot more than that, but suppose you can only get 100 out of hops. But I believe that beyond 100, you start getting complexity of bitterness. You get a more your bitterness actually takes on certain flavors that are really beyond that 100 threshold. So with the barley wine, I just wanted to keep it at about 100. I wanted a pretty clean bitterness. I didn't want the bitterness to distract from the rest of the beer too much, because the barley wine really is a lot about malt too.
Did you do anything particular in the mash for this barley wine?
Nothing special. I believe I mashed it low, about 149 Fahrenheit, because I wanted to. With a high alcohol beer like that, you're gonna have a lot of residual sugar. It's just going to happen. So you want to mash nice and low, try and get that wort to be real fermentable. And then, so this leads into actually one of the other things that I believe about barley wines is that they can't be too sweet. I think that is what makes them not drinkable. That's what knocks you down and makes you say, oh, this is an interesting beer, but I don't really want another sip of it. I think the key is to keep them really dry, well attenuated. So mash really low, get it really fermentable, pitch a lot of yeast, keep it healthy, ferment it at the right temperature, raise it up at the end, and I think it'll finish out nicely.
And for hops, it's American barley wine, so there's a lot of hop flavor. What were your hop additions like?
So it's pretty standard. I used Magnum for bittering on this because I wanted a pretty clean bittering hop. And I do all 90-minute boils. I actually did a 120-minute boil on this one because I wanted to get a little kettle caramelization. I don't remember I'll have to look it up. I don't remember the exact hops that I used in the boil, but I'm pretty sure it was Amarillo and Chinook and Centennial. And just your basic, 90-minute addition, 15-minute, and then flame-out addition. And then I also dry hopped. This is on a 5-gallon batch. I dry hopped with, I think, 3 ounces Amarillo, Centennial, and Chinook again.
How long have you been homebrewing?
About 2.5 years. something like that. Just something that I never expected to get into this intensely, but after that first batch, I was hooked. Just wanted to start designing recipes and get into the craft of it. And it's really been rewarding so far and taken me places I never thought it would.
Tell us a little bit about your brewing system at home.
It's nothing special. It's just a 10-gallon system. I'm using a stainless steel Sankey keg as my mash tun. It's 15 and a half gallons. So I mash in that. I've got just a basic aluminum pot as my hot liquor tank. I use propane burners, and then I got just a 15-gallon stainless steel pot for my kettle. And then for chilling, I use 2 counterflow chillers in line. I couldn't chill down quite as far as I wanted to with just one, so I just put another one on there. I've got a little bit more, I waste a little bit more at the end, but I feel like it's worth it because I really want to get my beer to pitching temperature as quickly as possible and get that yeast in there and get it going right away. So, and then for fermentation, I just use 6.5-gallon carboys, 5-gallon batches, and I control the temperature with refrigerator, and I use something called a firm wrap on the outside of the carboy. It's just a little heater, and then I use either the Ranco or the Johnson temperature controllers and just dial it right in. The fridge keeps the temperature down, and then that heater kicks on anytime it needs to be a little bit higher. So I can keep it exactly at whatever temperature I want. Lagers or ales works really well.
All right, well, thank you very much, and good luck.
Thank you.
I'm here with Jason Roper, Longshot finalist. Tell me a little bit about your beer.
It's actually Belgian-style unblended lambic. It's kind of a unique style for people that haven't had it. It's kind of a play on like a sweet and sour, I would say.
So your beer's a Belgian-style lambic. Did you use one of the Yeast Labs lambic mixes, or how did you inoculate the beer?
Actually, I used 2 different yeasts on that. I did use a blend. I used a lambic blend, and then I actually added a culture of lactobacillus to it as well, help pick up the sour side.
Could you tell us a little bit about the grain bill and the brew side of the beer?
The grain bill is very straightforward. It used quite a bit of wheat and Pilsner malt. Really, in all honesty, the hops with this beer are aged. I found 3 or 4 year old whole hops. It was very straightforward. I mean, it was a standard infusion mash. And really, when you get into these style of beers or these funky beers, so to be, it really doesn't play a big factor in the final product. It's really the final product is it really comes from fermentation. That's really what makes it Belgian lambic.
And could you describe the fermentation process for this one? How long did it take? Did you do anything special?
The primary fermentation did not take very long. Primary fermentation was maybe 30 days, and then it went through an aging process. In doing the fermentations to get the lactic side right, you really have to have a lot of oxygen. So I actually fermented this beer in a plastic tub as opposed to in glass, and then transferred and cellared and waited for pellicles to form and do its bit.
Did you find that what kind of plastic tub was it? Was it like just a plastic fermenter, or was it something special that gives you more oxygen infiltration than your normal, fermenting bucket?
No, actually, it's just a plastic bucket. It's actually one of those they sell them in homebrew shops, the little ale pails or pale ale. Yeah, it's no different than a Home Depot plastic bucket.
Do you find the oxygen infiltration comes through the plastic, or is it around the seal for the lid?
No, I think it seeps in directly through the sides of the bucket, right through the plastic.
Have you been brewing a lot of wild beers, sour beers?
I go through, the certain times of the year. I'll get a hankering to do a lactic fermentation. So I'd want to say I usually brew those beers like beginning of summer, and I don't brew them all through the year. I have my different styles of beer that I'll brew different times of the year, but. Yeah, I'd say I mess with those usually once a year.
How long does it take for the beer to be ready from brew day?
From brew day, it really probably you could have it ready in about 6 months if done right.
That sounds like a pretty short time period for wild fermentation.
It's a very short time period. But once again, it really depends on what you're looking for out of the beer and the process. The more oxygen you can get in there, you can get it done quicker. If you're fermenting this beer in glass or conical or steel, it's going to prolong. Just make sure it's got a lot of oxygen, and you can speed up the process a lot by doing that.
How long have you been homebrewing for?
About 9 years.
Tell us a little bit about your brewery at home.
I actually use a More Beer 2050, a 3-tiered system that I bought from those guys back in 05 or 06. I also have a heated and cooled conical fermentation vessel that I use for most of my beers. Obviously, I don't put my funky beers in that. But I'll brew it on that system, but they go into plastic from there.
Is this your first time entering in the long shot competition? Have you entered other beers?
Actually, no. I entered in the long shot competition back in 2005 or 2006. I don't recall which year it was. I only entered a couple of beers, and I think they scored out reasonably well. But I didn't enter, what I entered this year, obviously.
Right. Have you entered this beer in any other competitions?
Actually, I have. We do a lot of local club competitions, and as a matter of fact, this beer won first place at a Beer and Sweat, which is a local keg competition in Cincinnati.
Have you ever tried doing spontaneous fermentation?
No. I be honest with you, I don't think it really can be done. And I don't want to waste, when you spend 6, 7, 8 hours producing a batch of beer, you don't want to ruin it. So no, I haven't. But I've heard of guys that have tried and been very unsuccessful. So,
are you surprised that Lambic made it this far in the long shot competition?
Shocked. Matter of fact, to emphasize on that, I thought there was just no way in the world that they would pick a Lambic #1 or choose to reproduce a Lambic. Until I was talking with a couple of friends of mine that actually work for Sam Adams in Cincinnati, and they said, well, Jim's actually got a room where they're messing with wild lactic fermentations and Belgian styles, and then my heart kind of skipped a couple of times, and then the giddy up got in. I'm like, wait a minute, okay, maybe I have a chance. This could be good. So I'm really excited.
All right, well, thank you very much, and good luck.
Thank you.
I'm here with Michael Robinson. He is a long shot finalist for the long shot competition. Tell me a little bit about your beer.
I made an old ale. It's a strong English ale.
How long have you been homebrewing?
14 years. Yep, quite a while.
Have you used this recipe in other competitions? Have you been brewing this old ale for a while, or is this new?
Actually, no. This is a fairly new style for me. One that I played around with years ago and revisited about a year ago. This beer is actually about a year and a half old in the keg. And I've only entered one other competition with it outside of this one, and it's done well. It's a good beer.
So you've been brewing for 14 years. I presume you've done a lot of brews. Tell me a little bit about your brewery at home.
It's a 3-tier rack system. I based it after one of the More Beer systems, and a friend of mine whom is a welder helped me put it together. We just use converted Sankey kettles, and actually I'll add that a couple years ago when we were pregnant with our first child, I built a second brewery. And nowadays, when I brew beer, I'll brew 2 beers simultaneously, side by side, in an effort to. I don't have as much time as I used to, so this way I can bang out 2 at once.
Actually, I found that it's only a little bit more work to do 2 simultaneous brews, so I do that trick sometimes as well. In brewing the old ale, just talking to the basic brewing audience, let's talk a little bit about how you brewed the old ale. Was there anything in particular? How big is the beer? Bitterness? How much malt did you use? What kind of malts?
What's cool about an old ale is it's a very simple recipe. You're just basically talking base malts and a little bit of flaked barley. Real simple, nothing exotic like perhaps a Belgian ale would be. The beer was a 1090 original gravity. I used a lot of Fuggles hops in it, and like I said, fairly simple recipe, but a little bit of age really seems to bring out the complexity over time.
What got you into brewing?
Actually, when I was a little bit younger, my mom worked at a store, and they started selling beer kits, and she thought it'd be cool to buy me one, and simple bucket system, and that's what got me started. So I credit Mom, and from there, it got a little bit out of hand, and now like I said, I got a fairly elaborate brewery at home, and got into just about everything: pH adjustment and yeast propagation and all that good stuff.
Have you entered the long shot competition before?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I was a finalist last year, so it's my second time here, and feel very fortunate to have made it a second time. Obviously, didn't win last year, and I'm kind of hoping that'll change this time.
Well, good luck to you, and thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thanks.
I'm here with Ron Mahan, one of the other finalists for the Longchamp competition. Ron, let's start off by telling me a little bit about the beer that you brought.
I placed with a German Maybach, Hellbach, and it was a Einbecker clone that I did at Einbecker Hell, and I sourced the recipe out of a out-of-print book. Had to do some hop substitutions, but it really turned out nice.
Have you been brewing that beer for a while, or is this the first time?
That was actually the first beer I brewed, and the first time I brewed that beer, that particular style, and I brewed it for a Cincinnati Bock competition. And I do well with light lagers and pilsners, and I thought for a Bock competition I'd try to go that route. It was basically the first time I brewed it, and I really, really liked it. So,
how long have you been homebrewing for?
Started in 1994, and I brewed for about 10 years without brewing to style. And when I joined a homebrew club, I took a beer judge course and started learning about styles and started brewing to style. And that's pretty much it there.
So you've been brewing for a while. What's your home brewery look like?
My home brewery actually is pretty extreme because I'm a tile contractor, and I converted a horse barn into a brewery. Parts of it, built some rooms in there and tiled and waterproofed it, and so it looks like a real brewery almost. But basic, I use 15-gallon converted kegs to brew in, and I still mash in coolers and things like that. No fancy brew systems, or I want one, but I haven't got that far yet.
We're also doing this interview for the listeners of Basic Brewing Radio. It's a homebrewing podcast. And so let's talk a little bit about the grain bill and mashing on the brew.
Okay. The grain bill, actually, I used, it's a 95% Pilsner malt, and I believe I used Weimerman, and my notes weren't real good on that, and it could have been a Weimerman or Durst blend. So if I'm running low on one grain, I'll blend them. And it was 4.7% Cara Munich, and for hops, bittering hops, 60 minutes, I used a Hallertauer and a Tettnanger, and the IBUs were 14. My OG was 1067. My final gravity was 1012, 9.1 SRM for color. Used a Bohemian Lager yeast. It was 2124, and some of my tasting notes was it had fragrant hop and tart aroma, which I had no flavor aroma hops in there, but the bittering ones came through, and finished bittersweet, becoming dry, and it was real good and drinkable.
Any particular details on the lagering that you need to do to get this beer to come out weighted?
The lagering temperature? I had it in a chest freezer, and I had it at, I believe, around 50 Fahrenheit, maybe 48 Fahrenheit, through its primary fermentation. Then I secondaried it into a corning keg and cold crashed it for probably about 3 weeks to a month, and then transferred it off of that, and then carbonated it. Artificial carbonation.
Is this your first time entering a beer in the Longchamp competition?
No, actually, last year I entered, and I think I had a German Hefeweizen that I placed first with, so that was exciting.
Thanks very much, and good luck to you.
Oh, thank you.
Let me apologize for interrupting drinking. I know that's a sin, hopefully not a mortal sin, but I want to take just a few minutes and do something that's fun for me, which is announce the winners of the 2009 long shot competition. So, for those of you who haven't been here before, the Samuel Adams long shot competition is something we started doing in 1996 as I think a way of continuing our community with the rest of the community of brewers in the United States, which is not just people at the Great American Beer Festival, but hundreds of thousands of home brewers here in the United States, and continuing to show recognition for that community alongside the rest of this great revolution in beer that's happening in the United States. And it's particularly important to me for, I guess, two reasons. I first made Samuel Adams in my kitchen 25 years ago as a home brew. Frankly, it wasn't anywhere near this good, but it was the best I could do with the equipment and the ingredients you could get at that point. And second, a few of you who have been around for a while remember that this festival, the Great American Beer Festival, did not always exist as this amazing, standalone, economically viable event that we see today. 25 years ago, when I first came here in 1984, it was part of the Homebrewers Convention. It was the last night of the AHA, and the main sort of force in small-scale brewing at that time was the American Homebrewers Association, who tolerated this handful of nut jobs who had tried to go pro. And we would bring our beers to basically have a big party at the end of the AHA. And eventually, it's grown to this world-famous event that we enjoy today, but it came out of the homebrewing community. And even today, you see all this creativity, diversity of beers at the GABF that are just, in full flower. Well, the roots of those flowers, the creative juices of those flowers, the roots are in homebrewing. Many, many, many of those styles were first made as home brews and then became new styles of beer that showed commercial viability. So this is a way of reminding everyone of the roots of craft brewing are really the home brewing community. And we got about 1,300 different beers from homebrewers all over the United States. There are 4 finalists are here for the. We basically make up a 6-pack of beers, and 2 of the beers come from the homebrew contest, and then the third comes from another community of brewers, which is the employees of Boston Beer Company. Most of our employees are brewers, so we got over 300 homebrews from Boston Beer Company employees. Something like 90-some% of our people made a homebrew. So there was a competition there. The 3 finalists presented their beers at the beer festival, and the winners were selected from those 3 finalists. So that's the origins of it, and I have in my pocket the names, yes, written in sobriety, so it is clear. But the 3 people from Boston Beer Company whose beers were showcased Thursday night, last night, and here were a lemon pepper saison from Jeremy White, and from Andy Gavrin, it's called H-Stitch Steamer, also known when Fritz Maytag is around as California Common Beer. The H-Stitches refer to Andy dropping the carboy, big glass carboy. You want to show him the 8 stitches? There they are. Luckily he saved the beer. He cut his wrist and bled all over the steps, but he saved the beer. And the third beer is Tim Kerrigan's 8 a.m. Pale Ale, named 6 a.m., even earlier, named after the espresso and the orange in the beer. And the winner of the employees section of the long shot competition is the Lemon Pepper Saison. You get the ceremonial mug. Congratulations. Two fisting is okay. And the 4 finalists for Tim, stay up. You're going to get your picture taken. Sure. And the 4 finalists for the homebrew competition were Mike Robinson from New Hampshire with an old ale, and Ben Miller from New Mexico with a killer barley wine. And why don't you guys stand up? So, and then third, Ron Mahan with a Hellesbach. He's from Alexandria, Kentucky. And for the first time ever, we actually have 2 finalists from the same homebrew club. Because the 4th finalist is Jason Roper from Amelia, Ohio, who made a very interesting fresh lambic. And I'm very happy because these guys are both basically, while they claim to be from Kentucky, they're basically from Cincinnati, which is my hometown and the world center of brewing knowledge. So, Amelia, Ohio is not in Cincinnati, but in the outskirts of Cincinnati. I pass through it every time I go to see my family out in Georgetown. And I knew the recession had hit home when I drove through Amelia and the Hooters had closed. That's when I knew it was bad. So let me announce the winner. So if anybody wants a 25-foot stainless steel pink palm tree, one in the parking lot. Let me announce the 2 winners whose beers will be in the 6-pack, distributed nationally. And the 2 winners are the barley wine from Ben Miller. Congratulations. It's like Miss America. The final beer that'll be in the long shot 6-pack is the Old Ale. Cheers. Yeah. Cheers. Nice job, guys. Nice job. And that's it. You can go back to your drinking.
I'm here with Michael Robinson, who won for his Old Ale. He has a much bigger smile on his face, and I think he might be a little more talkative now than he was earlier. How you feeling?
Absolutely great. So excited. It's a huge relief, and I really couldn't be happier. So excited.
We're here with his Old Ale. They're pouring it. Now, my first question is, did the brewer do it justice?
Yeah, I think so. It's really good. Obviously an Old Ale, it's obvious by the name. It, usually ages for a little while, and this is a really good beer right out of the gate, and which means it's going to be even better with a little bit of time. So I'm excited to hopefully get my hands on a bunch and lay it down, too, so I can have one, maybe every week for the next couple of years.
There you go. Yeah, I wonder how much they'll give you. Do you have any idea?
No, I don't. I have no idea. That'll be interesting to see, but I don't mind buying it. Gonna have some serious bragging rights with all my friends, and I can't wait to see it in the stores.
Hey, see that's my face.
Yeah, I keep joking with my friends. I'm gonna walk up to the grocery counter with it on my shoulder and say, yeah, I'm just gonna take this. This is mine.
So, in tasting this Old Ale, first thing I'm noticing, it's kind of cold right now, right? So I'm trying to warm it up. But the first thing I'm noticing is a great toffee-type flavor from the malts and whatnot. And not too much oxidation or anything like that yet, but they just brewed it about a month ago, probably a month or 2 months ago. But I see it definitely has some promise, and that toffee, that it's really engaging in the malt flavor.
Yeah, I agree. I get a bunch of malt right up front, and then the alcohol hits right behind it, which of course will mellow out with some time. I think they did a real good job on this one. It was very, very similar to my beer.
Yeah, now that it's warmed up a little bit, I'm getting that alcohol hit too. It's pleasant. It's not too hot or harsh. It's kind of mellow. It's kind of what you want with an old ale.
Yeah. Again, I think they did a nice job.
Michael, congratulations, and I'll be looking for your face on my beer store shelves sometime soon.
Thank you very much. Good talking with you.
All right, I'm here with Ben Miller. He won with his Mile High Barley Wine, and you had the opportunity to taste what they're pouring here. And how well did they do to replicate your formula?
Surprisingly close. I gave them just the basics as far as the recipe goes. No real details, nothing tricky. And there were some tricky things when I brewed it, but not knowing any of that, they came really close.
You mentioned earlier before we were recording about how your fermentation got stuck and you had to pitch some more yeast. Did you use the same strain of yeast, or did you use a different one with more alcohol tolerance?
So originally I used probably not the most ideal yeast because it didn't have as high of an alcohol tolerance. That also is the yeast I told the Boston Beer Company that it was my recipe. So I don't know if they used that or if they used more of like a California ale yeast, 1056 from Y Yeast, for example. And that's the yeast that I use now because it has much higher alcohol tolerance. So my first time brewing this beer is the one that I sent in to the long shot. And this is why I really didn't expect to win, because I felt like I used the wrong yeast. The process of brewing this beer was kind of non-standard. It did some unusual things with it, and but it's just one of those things where everything kind of came together right and turned out good. Surprised me, but like I was saying, when I brew this recipe now, I use the 1056 or the White Labs 001, and it has much higher alcohol tolerance, dries the beer out a lot better, which I think is really key to this style. A barley wine that is too sweet, you can't drink. It's got to be dry enough, but also still have some sweetness because you got a lot of bitterness in there too.
Yeah, when you were describing the beer earlier, you made it sound like there was going to be, you did use a ton of hops in the thing, but to me it's not like in-your-face hoppy or too bitter or anything. I was expecting something like a really fresh Bigfoot, the way you described it. And this one has a great malt balance, and I'm relieved because I like English barley wines. And this one is an American that I think is dialed in pretty good.
Yeah, I kind of agree that the hops are not really hitting you in the face on this beer. I wouldn't mind if the hops were a little more punchy. That's kind of what I try to go for when I brew this. And it's tricky because barley wines are supposed to be aged, and aging drops hops out. So that's why I was talking earlier about fermenting in a way that's going to make this beer not need to be aged too long. If you do it right, you don't get all these hot alcohol notes, and that's traditionally the reason for aging the beer, is to smooth out the alcohol and everything. But you're also dropping out your hops, so it's a balancing act. I think right around 4 months is about the best time to drink my beer fermented the way that I do it.
Excellent. Thank you very much, and congratulations.
Thanks a lot, man.
Now, I was really happy for Ben Miller because Ben and I spent a bunch of time together in the hospitality suite at the National Homebrewers Conference in Oakland. And he's a great guy. He's a smart brewer, obviously knows what he's doing, and it's cool to see somebody get some recognition who is as good a guy as Ben is, as I'm sure are the others as well.
Well, it was also good for Mike, right? Because he was a finalist last year.
Oh, well, there you go.
He didn't win, so now he gets his chance to get his face on the box as well.
Well, yeah, and I don't mean to short the other guys, but it's just that when you know somebody personally and spend some time with them,
you feel like you helped out a little bit.
Well, I wouldn't go that far. But seeing Ben recognized with the long shot wasn't the last time that you ran into him at the Great American Beer Festival.
Yeah, I was walking up to the awards ceremony, and I see Ben walking away from the stage with his hands and his hair, shaking his head in disbelief. So I had to run over and see what happened.
I'm here again with Ben Miller. We talked with him a little bit earlier today when he won the long shot competition. And walking up to the Great American Beer Fest awards ceremony, and they just announced the Pro-Am competition. And all I see is Ben walking away with his hands in his hair, like he couldn't believe what the hell just happened. So, Ben, what the hell just happened?
Yeah, I couldn't believe. So I apparently just got gold with my Pro-Am beer, American IPA. Completely surprised the hell out of me. I don't even know what's going on right now. This is just crazy. I feel like I'm dreaming.
What brewery did you brew the beer with?
This was with Chalma River Brewing Company in Albuquerque. Jeff Irway there is the brewmaster. This is actually my second year doing a Pro-Am with him. I had a Robust Porter last year, which was delicious. Did not place. I'm not sure how that happened. Just kidding. But, so, yeah, it's a great brewer. He used to be a home brewer, and he's on a 5-barrel system there. Has a lot of fun with it. Gets to do a lot of specials. Just really cool beer. Excellent brewer.
Now, how did you get into brewing the Pro-Am at Chalma River? Did you win a homebrew competition or something?
It was a homebrew competition. It was the Enchanted Brewing Challenge out in Albuquerque, and typically what they do is take the best of show beer and brew that for the Pro-Am. In this case, Chalma River and another brewery there, Il Vicino, were both choosing Pro-Am beers from that competition. So Jeff ended up on the best of show panel, and he liked my beer and decided, okay, this is what I want to do for the Pro-Am. And then mine did not win best of show. Best of show was Kyle Baxter with a Robust Porter, ironically, and so he did the Robust Porter with Il Vicino.
So how did the brewing on the big system, how did the beer equate to your homebrew scale? Is it with the same beer? Was it slightly different?
It was slightly different, but that was intentional. We're working with different hops this year than my homebrew version of it, and so because hops change from year to year, you got to adjust your recipe. And I was afraid I was going to get too much of the garlicky thing out of this year's Amarillo, so I threw in some extra Centennial to try and keep it more citrusy. My goal with this beer was to make a beer with the sort of the dank qualities of Columbus with the citrusy qualities of Amarillo. And this year's Amarillo wasn't quite as citrusy, so thus that's why I threw in the Centennial, and I think it turned out pretty almost right on to what I was hoping. I still would have liked a little more citrus notes in it, but still, I think it's a delicious beer.
It is a delicious beer. Can you tell us a little bit about the hopping schedule for it?
Columbus bittering, and we do a 90-minute boil on that. And then more Columbus at 30 minutes out. And I believe I started putting the Amarillo in 15 minutes out, and then at flame out. So, and then more Columbus at flame out. And then dry hop, as I was saying before, fairly equal parts of Columbus, Amarillo, and Centennial. I think I may have had a little more Columbus.
It's a delicious IPA.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much, Jeff. Good to talk to you.
Good to talk to you again.
Now, I guess we should clarify for those who don't have a background with what the Pro-Am competition is. These are home brewers that have won recognition in homebrew contests that are paired with professional brewers, and they brew the beer at the professional brewery, and then they enter it into the Pro-Am competition with the Great American Beer Festival. Is that essentially that in a nutshell?
Yep, that's it. It's judged just like every other category, but it's more of like a best in show, right? Because there are all different kinds of categories. Stone Brewing's Pro-Am was a macadamia nut coconut beer, porter type thing, you know? Which, how do you compare that versus Ben's IPA versus, you know, all these other styles of beer?
Mm-hmm.
It was really cool because they had the Pro-Am table at the beer fest, And they had so many entries this year, they couldn't pour every one at every session. But if you went to multiple sessions, you could try all the Pro-Am beers. And I don't know the count, but it was like 50, 55
I think
Pro-Am beers this year.
I think it was significantly more than last year. I don't remember what the number was last year. And hopefully there'll be more next year. And who knows, maybe they'll be, maybe they'll have their own little festival there as an offshoot of the GABF.
It could grow. I mean, it's getting more and more popular every year. I have a friend who's brewed the last couple of years in the Pro-Am, and he likes to joke that came in 4th place again. Everyone who doesn't medal comes in 4th place.
Oh. Everybody gets an honorable mention. Well, excellent. Well, I'm sorry that we weren't there this year at the same time that you were. And hopefully one of these years we will be at the Great American Beer Festival together, Jeff, and we can, you can lead me around to all the wonderful craft beers and, give me a tour of the country like Rick Sellers did last year. That'd be fun to do.
Yeah, I definitely want to get on the same cadence some year. So I don't know if I have to come again next year or if I have to skip 2 years, but I'd like to hang out with you sometime at the GABF.
Amen, brother. Well, all right, Jeff, I appreciate greatly all your work.
All right. Thanks, James. And go to craftbeerradio.com.
Yeah. Well, thanks again to Jeff for powering through his Saturday morning hangover to get us that sound from the home brewers. I can't wait to taste those beers. Those are going to be some good ones. And be sure to check out craftbeerradio.com, of course, for more coverage of the Great American Beer Festival. If you have brewing questions, show suggestions, or just want to say howdy, write to james@basicbrewing.com or just fill out the contact form on basicbrewing.com. And please don't forget to tell us where you're from. You can check out our homebrewing DVDs, Introduction to Extract Homebrewing, Stepping into All Grain, Low-Tech Lagering and Decoction Mashing, and Introduction to Wine Kits. We got combo deals on our site to save you a few bucks if you want to buy more than one DVD at a time. And importantly, you can see a listing of the fine folks across the country who sell our DVDs on basicbrewing.com. And if there isn't a vendor in your area, you can order them online in our online shop at basicbrewingshop.com. We've got shirts, and I keep saying we got one in the works. We do. Before too long. Just in time for it to get cold here in the Northern Hemisphere. Thanks to everybody who's continued to click on our Amazon.com link. We appreciate the support there. Our featured products this week that were purchased through the link are Blue Ribbon Preserves, secrets to award-winning jams, jellies, marmalades, and more. And to go along with that, the Miro 22-quart aluminum pressure cooker canner. I assume those go together. I can't tell who bought what. So just click on the Amazon.com logo on our site the next time you feel like Amazon shopping, and we greatly appreciate your support. And don't forget our associate links to the American Homebrewers Association and our link to Brew Your Own magazine as well. That's all until next week. Until then, thanks for listening, everybody. I'm James Spencer. Production help for Basic Brewing Radio and our website is provided by Kelly Dotson down in Austin. Basic Brewing Radio is a production of Active Voicing. We'll talk to you next time, everybody. So long.